players never turn down the money. They'll go. Robinson Cano will go from the Yankees to the Mariners for money. NBA guys turn money down all the time. They want to win games. I mean, they want to be playing in June. With that, via the Coward Global Satellite Network, B.J Armstrong, who's become one of my favorite guests. Let's start with the, as you represent players, yeah, Michael was tough. Do you think current players, first of all, would Michael adjust to the current landscape? Would players adjust to him? How do you think they'd work together today?
Well, absolutely. Would you adjust as the game evolves, and evolution is part of life, right? Change is life, and life is change. So would Michael Jordan adjust to today's game and the way the game is played? Absolutely. And, he will always figure it out. I think as you're watching the documentary, that's one thing about him that we always come to understand and always respect about him, that he was always going to find a way. So the goals don't change, right? The goal of the game is to win and to try to figure that out. And you adjust during the course of the game. Sometimes you'll have a great game plan, and you should have to veer away from that game plan because it's not working for whatever the reason may be. So I think that was part of his makeup. And anyone who has achieve success understands that you have to change. And sometimes you have to change on the fly, and he would without question, he would have figured that out.
You played for the first three-peat team. Compare them to the second. Where do you think your three-peat team was better and perhaps inferior to the other three-peat team?
Well, there were two players, talking about Michael and Scotty, who were on both of those teams. And I think the difference was physically the first three-peat, they were physically superior. I mean, Michael Jordan in 91, 92, 93, he could just physically overwhelm you, his opponents, and whoever he was playing. And we were all young. We could extend the game for 94 feet. There was no denying that. And we had we provided the energy, and obviously we were a team that was dedicated to doing the effort and whatever is necessary to win. So I think physically those teams were probably superior than the next three. But the genius of, especially those two players in particular, Michael, was they were different players and they adjusted. They reinvented themselves. Michael basically became he was a 6'6", center at that point of his career in many regards, because most of his touches were below the free throw line. And he figured out how to get the same results, even though physically he wasn't the same dominant player that he once was. He was obviously very dominant still and could do things, but he wasn't the same athlete that he was in 91, 92, 93.
You talked to Michael about retirement in 95. Did you talk to him before he retired or after? Wait, take me to that discussion.
I think he retired right after the 93 season, right? Going into the 94 season. So he had already been retired. And as we were talking, and, there was a lot of things going on off the court at that time, Colin, and you just wanted to be a good friend, and you want to support your family any way you can. And we had built up a relationship, all of us, where we had shared something that was going to keep us all connected and winning championships and playing in all the time we had spent together. So the big thing was, you just wanted no one on that team. And then in this instance, we're talking about Michael, no one to feel alone, that they were going through whatever they were going through in their life alone. And you didn't need to know the details of it. But what you wanted to do is make sure if they needed an ear or just someone just to talk to or share time with, that, we were all there for them. So for all of us, that was just common. We were going to be there with our, our friends, our brothers, and try to really be a good friend. And that's all we were trying to do.
Watching this documentary, I wonder if the first three-peat, which you were part of, was more joyful, and the last three-peat felt like more of a burden and protecting a legacy. Because I look at some of those your championship teams, and the kids were young. It's the first big present you get from your parents, And then I watch the last championships, and I think, man, these are heavy. Until the buzzer sounds, they're heavy. I mean, go back to your championships. You're younger. Did they feel joyful? The ride.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the very first championship against the Lakers was just, I just remember that moment after Game 5. It was so joyful for all of us because it was the first. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how to act. You're overcome with joy. You're overcome with emotion. You're overcome with so many things. So that was great. And I don't think anything will ever replace the first. But as you're playing and you're accumulating all of these games and all of these battles and all of these intense moments, it wears on you. Father Time is not going to pass anyone. And certainly as an athlete, you understand that, at some point, the show is going to end. And so you're just fighting, your clock, your internal clock. You're fighting, trying to stay at your peak as long as you possibly can by working out, so forth and so on. And most importantly, you got to find a way to get through that grind. You got to play 82 games. You got to try to figure out how to win 16 games. And it becomes literally a race against time. So I just think you respond differently because at some point it's going to end and you just don't know when it's going to end. And, it just becomes, just an internal struggle and you do the best you can. And in this instance, they were able to keep that going and figure out how to get 6 championships out of it.
I think Phil Jackson's looked really smart in all this. What was your relationship like with Phil?
Phil was great. And I thought Phil had a great way of breaking up the monotony of the season. He was very unconventional. I think he loved to jar people a little bit. He loved to do things where people would ask, what is really going on here? My favorite word in dealing with Phil was whatever. That was, like whatever was going, like, as I'm recounting the stories and all the things that we did and listening to how he handled Dennis Rodman and my kids were like, God, Dad, did he really do that? And then it's like, whatever. I just didn't think twice about anything that would happen in the NBA. So, I think he had a great sense of the way he handled people. I think he understood that everyone, we're all individuals and we're going to bring this to the team. But I think overall, he had a sense of community and he had a very unusual way of making you feel connected to the group and the group dynamics. And I think he always respected that. We respected that for anyone who played with him. And you can't argue with results.
Finally, it does feel like today, BJ, as an agent in the NBA, more hopeful. We're getting more testing. Testing is now widely available. We're not rationing that. It feels like centralized location makes sense. I feel very optimistic about the NBA today, and I didn't 2 weeks ago. How do you feel today representing current players?
Well, I think Commissioner Silver and the entire NBA has done an excellent job of informing the players to the best that they can and really trying to give a sound of advice or a sound of information that's possible. But the fact remains is we still don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think, like everyone, would like to return back to some form of their normalcy, if you will, into becoming normal. But I think as we are gathering more information, as we're beginning to understand the magnitude of what just happened or what we're currently going through, no one knows. And I think the NBA has always held first and foremost the safety of the players, the safety of all their fans and all of the people, and especially in the communities that we all live in, that all of these players play a part of. So I think there is optimism in the air, and we all would like to go back. But at the same time, I think the safety of everyone is at the forefront, and it should remain that way. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll see where it goes. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because it's going to, in order for us to get through this, we're going to need everyone to play their part, everyone to be responsible and be accountable if we're going to get through this and come through and see what's going on the other side.
By the way, did you get along with Jerry Krause? Doesn't seem like anybody got along with the late Jerry Krause. Did you have a relationship with him?
Yes, I did. Jerry Krause, he drafted me in 1989. He took a chance on a kid from the University of Iowa, and he drafted me and thought I could, maybe or maybe not help this team. So, and then after I got done playing, I worked in the front office for five or 6 years as an assistant general manager. So I got along with Jerry Krause, got a chance to understand and work with him as a player, got a chance to work beside him to see, some of his techniques that he had. And I got along with him. He was fine.
Okay, we got one person that got along. I just wanted one. B.J. Armstrong, good talking to you, man.
All right, thank you.
Whether you're working from home or working on your fitness, you want to hear your music, not your roommates, order Raycon wireless earbuds, 15% off. Buy Raycon.com/herd, buy Raycon.com/herd. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, speaking of Jerry Krause, the fallout between Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson is well documented in The Last Dance. Yeah. And according to Jerry Reinsdorf, Phil tried to make amends with Krause years after he had left the Bulls, but Krause wasn't interested. Reinsdorf said Phil asked him to be the middleman so the two could bury the hatchet, but Krause rejected the offer, and Reinsdorf believes it's because Krause was too prideful and he couldn't move on.
That pride is pride before the fall.
It's a naughty little thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Reinsdorf
We get very prideful.
Yeah, Jerry was